Do you want me to go through the attachment page by page, or do you have specific questions? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, I went through it and I'm interested. I got a couple of questions, so maybe we could just touch point on a lot of the key items, I guess, on the next. I think it's only 3 pages long, right?
This is written by Art. Art doesn't do anything that's only 3 pages long.
It is though only 3 pages.
Oh my goodness, I must have caught him on a good day.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go through it. It is fairly quick. The specific goal of eKanban is to fairly easily replicate what Kanban presently does. There are some nice hooks into some added features that we were requested to put in some time ago. And so we're just going to get started. The as you can see, the configuration is fairly simple. Do you have any questions on the actual configuration?
No, I think that's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, there is a pretty, I'd say, intensive scheduler that can sit behind this. We tend to look for other opportunities to make your lives simpler. Sometimes they become more complex. There is a production JIT scheduler that's mapped out against the shipping schedule. So you can imagine you have hourly requirements or daily requirements, and you need to have that quantity built by 1 o'clock so you can ship it by 2. We can tie that information into this and sort of provide an override, if you wish, to the hard coded or hard configured max and mins. So it is well tied into the other modules that we provide, and so Tina, can you go to the next page? This is a little small on my screen. Tina, can you send? They're working on, of course, they're working on my my internet connectivity to my house at this very instant. So I can't blow that screen up. Do you have any questions on the configuration tool?
No, I think it's pretty simplistic interface, right? I mean, you
Right.
have your molds, you plug it in. Basically, your part numbers go to your presses, and then they're all assigned, if you will, right?
Correct.
So I think that's pretty obvious. We're good.
It's important to recognize. Tina, can you go to the next screen? Okay. There's an ability, and you can see what comes up on the production client. There's an ability to introduce Kanban cards that are sort of used once and then thrown away. And these cards are used to generate quantity requirements that are sort of outside your min and maxes. Like if you're building up for a weekend or a build out, and you may say, well, I want 2 safety stock containers. You would put those 2 Kanban cards and tag them as non-reusable. So that way you can bump up your inventory and not cause any configuration worries to your normal production. Do you understand my explanation?
Yeah, I follow you, Bob.
Okay. There are a lot of people who play with Kanban who actually never take the steps to implement Kanban. And so I'm sort of used to that level of engagement. So I'm here to answer questions. What's a question that we can start off with?
How about I give you the hypothetical scenario, I guess, of kind of what we're looking for, and then we'll tie it back into what you're presenting.
Perfect.
So, essentially, we'd like to take our molding presses, assign all of our components to each individual one. There's got to be flexibility within each. We got to be able to move them from tools from machine to machine. Unfortunately, we're highly cross-loaded, I guess you could say. But that aside, take the components, assign them mins and maxes based on the customer pull, and create that autonomous system at the press that the operator, cell leader, and supervisor can quickly make a decision on what they should be running and when they should be running it based on the red, yellow, greens, which is kind of what you're showing me in this screen, I think. This would be your operator interface, I would guess. They can open this up. It looks like they can even print the labels out of it. So
you actually use this instead of the production client to start recording production.
Okay.
Well, use this instead of the non-Kanban production tab. So the answer to your question is yes. They would actually stay on this tab throughout the shift.
Okay. And then we would be building or measuring our mins and maxes out of a central marketplace within the plant that the assembly area would be pulling from. So as they pull the inventory out of the marketplace to bring it to the assembly area, now it's up for discussion whether we kill the label there or we kill the label after consumption at the assembly line or line side, whatever you want to call it. But at some point, that label would have to get terminated to, send that signal back to the molding press to, again, put the card back into place here.
Correct. The normal process here is that area has a production client, and they actually scan that container to be consumed by that production event.
Okay.
Now, if you don't have a Blackhawk production event in that area, we would, I guess I'd say, do a finagle. We would end up saying, are these like supermarkets that you're pulling from?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay. We would suggest you have like a wireless scanner to scan the container out of the supermarket to the line, or you could scan it. Then now it gets a little more complex. If we put a replenishment signal that drives the material handling that puts one of these containers into the supermarket, we would use that ability when it's scanned to the supermarket to kill that container.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Kind of, yeah. What about scan to location? How does that tie into this whole thing? How could we use that?
Well, scanning the location, if you're just to scan these containers to the supermarket, we would use that as a signal to kill that container.
Okay, well, I think we would need the signal to get killed after it's consumed at the line.
Only issue with that is they're not currently scanning containers as consumed.
I know. Yeah, I know. But I mean, I guess my point is if we consume it or kill it, if you will, at the marketplace, it creates the opening to, reproduce that whip that we don't need to be doing because it's still in the marketplace.
And there might not be room in the marketplace for it.
Yeah, exactly. We're already at our max. So the max has to be controlled at the marketplace.
Okay. Do we want to kill it when the container's empty or when the container leaves the supermarket to go to the line?
Well, that's up for debate. I guess it can go both ways. I prefer consumption to be at the assembly line. Some people would say once you pull it, but we've seen events where things get pulled out of the marketplace, scanned, and then the line only runs half, and then everything gets put back into the marketplace.
That's the
Um,
issue. We don't have line side overflow, so
Yeah,
things are coming back if they don't get consumed.
that's right.
Well, that's ugly. How do you control the label, the quantity on that returned container into the supermarket?
They relabel it.
Yep.
Do you relabel it with the correct quantity, I assume?
Mhm.
Is that workstation that allows that? Can we use that workstation? You know, we just put um, an option under one of the tabs to scan a container empty. So they either scan it empty or scan it and reprint a label with the correct quantity. Or is that too much effort?
Well, that might
Yeah,
help our relabel efforts.
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna
it-
say Carrie needs to answer that one, I think.
Well, because we have trouble enforcing some cells and plants to relabel. So if they have to scan it at the end to either consume it as 0 or relabel it, they have to scan it either way, right? The process doesn't really change,
Mhm.
or the action doesn't change. Which I
Correct.
don't know,
The action
might help.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Compared to where the supermarket is there a Blackhawk workstation next to that to relabel?
Not at the supermarket, no. At
Okay.
the cell, yes. Where they would relabel at the cell, yes.
Well, so the function at that cell is it's the normal production cell, correct? So the ability to relabel is there. So we just give them the ability to identify the container as empty, and then the process would work. And if they don't scan it empty, the person who actually it will become very evident because the supermarket inventory will drop lower and lower and lower. The visual behind the supermarket will say that someone isn't scanning the containers empty.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we can get material from the molding area, scanned, and then it goes into the marketplace as its, staging area for our mins and maxes, and then pulled from the marketplace, not scanned at all, to affect our Kanban until it's at the line. And when it gets scanned at the line, it effectively kills the label. Now, the bin's still full of whip, and I don't know, maybe this is a topic for Carrie and some of the ops guys on how often it happens that we do half runs and put things back into the marketplace. If it's few and far between, then I wouldn't have a problem with it being killed at the line as it arrives. And then at that point, if it's not consumed, cell leader, supervisor, whomever at the Blackhawk terminal reissues the label as we currently do, puts it back on, then takes it back to the marketplace, adding that back into our Kanban. Now, because we hold what, Carrie, between 2 and 3 days for most of our inventory, correct?
Yes, for that
So
inventory.
if we hold that much, 1 or 2 bins isn't gonna kill the system by any means, I guess you could say.
Well,
So I don't.
we'll be doing changeovers a couple times a shift. So I would say we're going to have a partial going back at least twice a shift from most lines.
Yeah, but I guess the odds of the press running that specific component at that specific time is few and far between, right?
Mm,
That's what I mean. I mean, we run 3-day shots of one lens.
yeah, I don't know.
So
I'd
you're
be
not
thinking
going to
if
see your Kanban go up and down while you're running the machine as much as we may think, I guess is what I'm saying.
It probably
My-
happens fairly often because we change over so many times on the cell. They're going to hit something that's running and molding for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, but I guess my point is if it's one tote or two totes, that's not gonna destroy our inventory mins and maxes
sure.
by any means if we carry 3 days worth. That's my point.
Yep.
No, because we'll be able to accommodate that one extra bin for a changeover.
Yep. No,
exactly.
that's right.
We're not gonna damage anything. That's all what I'm saying is let's not overcomplicate it. And I mean, I think from what Bob's saying, if we already relabel the thing at the line, we can just keep doing what we're doing. It shouldn't impact this at all.
I
Now,
gotcha.
my problem with killing it at the line is that we're relying on someone to scan it. Could we rely on a barcode label being produced after the good part? Kind of like what we're doing now with our quantities for the pack out. Every time we hit, say, 50 of those, that means we'd use one box of 50 housings. That way, no one has to scan it out. And it would be directly related back to a system that doesn't rely on manual scans.
You mean from the finished goods?
Yeah. Because what I've seen from Scan to Locate is a great system, but if people don't use it, then we have pages of parts we think are there. If
So
we
you
have
basically
pages
want
of,
to back flush it, kind of how it
Yeah.
back flushes in Transform, but back flush it in Blackhawk.
yeah, exactly. So use the same thing that's printing our labels for us in Blackhawk that's capturing all the information on the and-on screens, that every time it creates a part in the and-on, it removes one of everything from the inventory of the Kanbans until
have
it
to-
is.
Yeah, that would be ideal, but we'd have to be careful that the scrap gets caught as well all the way through.
Well, a scrapper good, it's still going to reduce it by one, right?
No, I mean at the
But-
station.
What reduces it from where too, right?
That's what I mean. It'd have to do it at each individual station as well, not just finished good.
Yeah, but I've been in meetings where Carrie said that your people aren't scanning. Then I'm like, who isn't scanning? Because I could never prove it.
Yeah, that's fair. Scanning's a reconciliation issue.
Right,
Mhm.
but if we're not scanning, then we think we have the parts, then suddenly the assembly sells out.
Yeah.
If it's
And
tied
that's
back
not-
into a production system.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's
No,
not.
I see where you're going. I'm just, if we do finished goods, we have to manage all the scrap in the line as well. If
And
to
it has
back flush it, you'd have to manage all the scrap.
And it has to be done immediately.
That's right. It would have to be live, not on paper, not at the end of the shift. Each individual station would have to account for everything they scrap.
Yeah. Now, that could be the destination. And what we'd end up doing is saying, okay, for each production line, we need to come up with a way to count scrap or production as they go through the line. The challenges are not insignificant, especially when the container quantities are off by one. So we tend to start thinking, oh, we can close a container and there's still one or two parts in it. Or we can't close the container and it's empty. So there are some rigorous business rules we have to enforce and stuff like that. Now I'm saying that only to say it can be done. What about? I like the idea of initially doing the first pass being we're going to just scan containers as empty and not give them, sort of like count the number of pieces. We'll say 50, and now it's above the standard pack of the container that we thought would have been scanned empty by now, and literally just give them a neg saying, is my component container empty? Yes or no. And so they start having to hit this button on the screen every time we think it was empty and it was supposed to be scanned. And by use of a neg, then we don't have to have a real tight control on scrap or reject or even production. It's just that we think that they should have been scanning a container empty out of the supermarket and they haven't. And that may cause them to start scanning empty containers properly. And that's just it's just a nag. We commonly do this to change the character of the plant at that specific work cell. It may work, it may not work based on the culture of your plant.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we just let's stick to the high level, right? I mean, I like what everyone's saying, but if we just stick to it on a very high level, we have the ability with this software to manufacture a product in molding, place it into a marketplace, somehow show that it's consumed, whether how we decide that or whatever, we'll figure that out later. It readdresses the signal back to molding to create that product again, right? On a very high level, we have that.
I think you do, yes.
Okay. And then if we were to tie that in also, Bob, to now the assembly line has the same type of format to build to the marketplace in finished goods that gets shipped to our customer. And when we pack it onto a trailer, that signal goes back to the assembly line. So it's the exact same thing, two separate entities, but one business.
Correct. Is this all in the same building?
That's right. Yes, it will be. Well,
Okay.
wait, I can't say that. We do bring inventory from one plant to the other, but we'll sort all that out another time.
Okay.
But on a very high level, we can have something
Correct.
that you make a part out of molding, it goes into a marketplace, it gets consumed by assembly, triggering the signal back to molding. Now, the reason they're running this stuff in assembly is because they're looking at their Kanban there, and the marketplace at finished goods is signaling them to create that product, to replenish.
Correct.
Okay.
How are you going to drive? How are you going to drive the shipping requirements if they float?
Who's on a tugboat?
Yeah, I know.
That was my train that goes by my house. That's what it is.
It does sound like a tugboat.
That's awesome.
I don't,
So-
what do you mean by float, Bob?
The OEMs lately have been, well, actually for the last 2 years, have been trashing the normalcy of their daily and weekly releases. So,
Okay, yeah, so the fluctuations in their demand, right?
correct.
Okay, so I think we have schedulers in place. We could probably have them maintain Kanban based on that. So mins and maxes may fluctuate depending on the product, to your point. And I think that's what will have to be managed by some sort of scheduling person, which we technically already have.
Okay. The next thing is parts that are shipped to do different ship tos. Same part. Do you do that?
I don't know. Carrie?
Yes, yes, we do.
Okay. That will require some quick calculator work because your Kanban are not based on ship to. They're based on internal part number.
So would that change anything though?
Um,
I mean, if we just keep it within the four walls, that shouldn't affect too much, I don't think.
not the ship from doesn't change. It's like when you manufacture 80% of the parts to go to one plant and 20% of the parts to go to another plant. The manufacturing requirement is technically the sum of those parts. Now, the question is, do you label your ship to labels on the line according to the AR number?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to come up with a change because this would presume that you're building to an internal part number, and you may have, okay, the when you have two ship tos, do you relabel them? Do you relabel the low runner in shipping?
Sometimes. We try not to. The goal is no. The goal is that it's built to the arc record on the line.
Okay. We may have to think about changing the Kanban to have AR specific mins and maxes. I guess I don't know how.
Well,
else to-
sorry, it may fix itself because we have our own internal suffix on our, so we have our internal part number, but then we have a suffix on the end once it's a finished good, packaged, ready to ship. We are trying to separate so that those part numbers with the suffix on the end are all different. So we have a couple that we still need to do. So we can probably still do it from a finished good part number that would all be different.
Okay. We'll have to.
That would be my goal.
Yeah. Now I think I know. We'll have to actually visit that as a specific conversation for Kanban, because presently we only do it by internal part number. What you are doing, and properly doing, by the way, printing finished shippable labels according to the AR number, we do not handle as separate entities within Kanban. We may have to introduce that to handle your requirement. When you have these two different ship tos, do you actually have two different locations that you store your finished goods in?
Technically, yes, we should try to do that. Yes.
This is the one. This is where mostly is a good answer. Okay, because that tells me I have to figure out how to, first of all, if it impacts electronic Kanban, and then how to deal with that.
Why?
Because-
Why? I guess I'm not following. So why the final location? Why would it need to be different? Different part numbers in different supermarket locations? Is that what you're talking?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about, okay, I have a shipping requirement. There is an option. There's an optional report that tells you where to go pick the oldest container.
Yes.
And that, I have to admit, I don't remember right now if it is ship to specific, or is it just this is
I
the
think it
oldest?
is because we use it for Salau here, I believe.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I don't walk into any gotchas on my side.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting into the tall grass here. Do you have, first of all, your business model of going from molding into assembly into the finished good to shipping will work fine. We just need to make sure that we use the workstations that are available to make sure we close the signal loop for the Kanban.
I've got to jump to another call that I can't get out of. Is there, Justin, is there anything we need to regroup as a team with quickly to kind of, analyze internally, get back to Bob with some of these things? And then what are the next steps for us at that point?
Well, I think on our side, we need to determine the process and, how we want to identify product as consumed.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Okay. But why don't we do that then? Let's just, as a takeaway for us, we'll meet internally probably by the end of this week, I hope, or early next week. And then Bob, we'll get back to you as soon as possible with maybe some of these, I don't know, maybe different avenues to take to make this work a little bit easier for us. If that makes any sense.
I'm all for ease.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm also I'm really good in kibitzing, so if you want to invite me to this internal discussion,
Mhm.
I can play the advocate of
Okay.
what will and won't work. Won't work.
All right. Sounds good to me. So I think basically our next step is that let's regroup again, maybe and further this conversation that I think is going in the right direction, and see where it takes us.
Okay. Thank you all. Just,
Okay.
we can stay for longer conversation if anyone has to leave.
Yeah, I gotta jump. I don't know about the rest of the guys though. Thanks very much. Take care.
I
So-
also have a 1:30, so.
Okay.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all. Have a great day.
Bye.
See you, Bob. See you, Tina.